continue with Week 3 of the End Zone, presented by TiVo. Jason Horowitz and Ian Eagle in New York. Randy Cross with us in Atlanta. You can watch us here on CBSSports.com and on your TiVo DVR via TiVoCast, bringing you the top 5 stories in and around the NFL. And guys, this segment all about players that you weren't sure what to expect from coming this season. Guys that have been studs in the NFL in the past and are starting to stick it out again. And we got to start with Randy Moss. He's the obvious.
Well, redemption. I think that's the key word here when you start talking about these players, Randy Moss in particular. A cast-off, if you will, after growing to superstar status in the NFL. Randy Moss goes to the NFL's version of Siberia, the Oakland Raiders, and has 2 forgettable years and is really thought of now as just another guy. Well, first 2 weeks of the NFL season, Randy Moss has proven that he's more than just your average run-of-the-mill wide receiver. If you're just going to go pound for pound, strictly on talent, the most talented receiver in the NFL when things are right. And Randy, as you know, you get him with Bill Belichick, you get him with Tom Brady, and you're putting him in a position to succeed. That's what we've seen through the first 2 weeks of the season.
And please don't try to tell me, whoever you are out there, that today's athletes don't care about winning. It's all about the money. Randy Moss has made a pile of money, but it's all about winning. He had no shot of winning in Oakland. He had no shot of winning the last year or so at Minnesota. And now that he's with an organization and a group of football players like these Patriots, it really shouldn't be much of a surprise that he's being successful, any more than it should be a surprise that a guy like Edgerrin James is running the ball better and performing better because he's got a decent offensive line now. He didn't have that last year.
Well, we'll get to Edgerrin James in a second as you see what he's done so far in this season. But I want to get with something you just said there, Randy. It's no surprise that don't tell me that guys want to win. But of course guys want to win, but that doesn't mean that when they're in a situation when they don't like, they should be sulking, sitting on the sidelines, not caring. That was exactly the situation with Randy Moss in Oakland. That's not fair to the rest of his teammates.
Well, it's not, but that's the reality. That's sort of the world you're living in right now, sports-wise, Jason. I think if players perceive a weakness, if players perceive, and I don't care what they're being paid. I understand they're professionals, but you're not going to convince me ever that a football player isn't going to go toes up. And Randy Moss should be embarrassed for his performance at times. At times he was playing hurt, but at times he was flat just dogging it. And that wouldn't be tolerated in New England, and he knew that. And he's in a situation now where he's getting a chance to really show what he can still do.
And some players are natural leaders, others are not. Randy Moss is not a natural leader, and when he was down on his luck in Oakland, he did not have the personality to raise the level of play for the rest of his teammates. He was just worried about himself at that point, and that's why he got out of that situation.
All right, let's get back into Edgerrin James here, and Randy hit it on the mark, how good he has been playing this season. And I mean, it was made about everything was made about the fact that Ken Whisenhunt going to Arizona would bring an offense that would let Edgerrin James have the ball more. Edgerrin James, where they'd run it more, he'd have better chance. But let's be honest, the fact that you've got Anquan Boldin and Larry Fitzgerald on the outside just as threats, and I know they were there last year, but Fitzgerald was hurt. You knew that Edgerrin James wasn't going to have a second season like he had last year.
The video that I've seen, Randy, has stood out to me that Edgerrin James is back to his Indianapolis days where he's actually getting yards after contact. That was the great thing about Edgerrin James when he was a member of the Colts. You'd get an arm on him, but you couldn't bring him down. Last year, contact was made, and Edgerrin James was going down to the turf after a 3.5 yard gain. That's not Edgerrin James.
Yeah.
This is the Edgerrin James that we came to expect.
That's when the contact wasn't made in his own backfield.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true, too. That was part of the problem.
Yeah, never.
Yeah, it really was. And he's energized. But a lot of it is the people around him. You mentioned the 2 receivers, Matt Leinart. He's got Russ Grimm at that offensive line coach now that's made a difference with the guys up front. And I think he really has something to prove because he had to be pretty embarrassed by his performance and his numbers last year.
Jamal Lewis, on the other hand, the last 3 years had 7 100-yard games in total. 7 100-yard games in 43 total games played. Now, obviously, he had the injury in 2004. This is after he had over 2,000 yards in 2003. He had the injury in 2004, went to jail before the 05 season, so he didn't have training camp. Then in 2006, wasn't necessarily very good for Baltimore either. But we saw a Jamal Lewis against the Bengals. We saw a lot of people against the Bengals put up yards and points. But we saw Jamal Lewis against Cincinnati on Sunday that we have not seen in a very long time.
Well, Jamal Lewis is looking to party like it's 2003. That's the version of Jamal Lewis that we finally saw again. To me, though, of the three players that we're talking about, he's the one that I'm not convinced is going to use this as a springboard to a big season. It was the Cincinnati Bengals, Randy, and I think that's a big part of why Jamal Lewis, he put up huge numbers, yes, but let's keep in mind, it was the Bengals defense, and they're down on their luck.
Well, let's remember, guys, though, he is in a contract here. He is in a contract.
If those three guys, if they were stocks guys, you'd buy all the Randy Moss you could get. You'd cautiously go after some Edgerrin James. I wouldn't touch Jamal Lewis for a while. I'd be a little skeptical as to how consistent he could put up any kind of numbers.
That's right, and I think Ian Eagle could run through the Cincinnati Bengals at this point.
Really? Are you familiar with stocks?
Well,
Do you understand?
I understand stocks.
His pads are a little high.
You look very, very confused.
You think? Wait, Randy. I'm sorry. You think Ian runs too high? He doesn't get low enough?
His pads are a little high when he runs. Yeah.
Scouting report is finally out on me.
Take him out on the knees. He'll be fine. Folks, that's it for this segment of the End Zone. Stick around. Plenty more to come here on CBSSports.com. Always on demand on your TiVo DVR via TiVo Cast. And you can watch everything in your living room. We continue in just a little bit.